sing, Lord, I come. Lord, I come into your holy place. I stand in awe of your cleansing grace. Who am I that you would care for me? I glorify the one who died for me. Lord, I come into your holy place. Lord, I come into your holy place. I stand in awe of your cleansing grace. But who am I that you would care for me? I glorify the one who died for me. Let's sing glorified. Glorify, glorify. Let your name be lifted up and glorified. Let the earth tremble at your name. Let your name be lifted up and glorified. Into your hands I commit my life. Into your hands I commit my life. Day by day as a living sacrifice. That you would care for me. Sing glorified. Glorify, glorify. Let your name be lifted up. Glorify. Let the earth tremble at your name. Let your name be lifted up and glorified. Let's sing glorified again. Glorify, glorify. Let your name be lifted up and glorified. Let the earth tremble at your name. Let your name be lifted up and glorified. Let your name be lifted. Let your name be lifted up and glorified. Let your name be lifted up and glorified. So I want to close this time off in prayer. Amen. Please be seated.
I've got notices, but first, Nikki has something to share with you.
Morning, everyone. Some of you hopefully have seen that we are running another breast cancer research or foundation or whatever they are, Pink Ribbon High Tea on the 18th of May. It was a really awesome event last year. We had lots of people bringing friends and family along to fundraise for this very worthy cause, which I think most of us could say has impacted our lives through somebody that we know or love. So we would love if people would like to sign up to help bring a plate of food. I've got clipboards with a couple of categories because apparently with high tea you're supposed to start with scones, then club sandwiches and then sweets. So if you'd like to tick which thing you'd like to provide. The other thing we need is teapots. If anyone has fine china that they're allowed to share, or the tiered cake stands, that would be awesome. There is a Facebook event. If you can RSVP, if you are bringing a whole heap of people, can you just let us know how many more so we can make sure that we're catered for that? That would be awesome. So I'm going to send those around. There's another follow-on notice that is coming. But can I just have one question? Who here has either had a child or themselves has graduated from Kidiwinks Kindy? Can you put your hand up? Okay, there you go.
Okay, first up, our first notice is that next week is Mother's Day. So if you have a mother or are a mother or have a mother figure in your life, then it's an awesome thing to celebrate. On the 18th of May, just had that. RSVP to Nikki about the high tea. Now, directory photos. I believe this is photos for the church directory. See Monique after the service if you need photos. Yes? Okay, sure. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, I can hear myself. On Thursday night, there's a prayer meeting from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. That's probably here at church. I'm not sure who's doing that, but here, I suppose. And about Next Level, the high school youth group, there is a program called Alpha starting on Wednesday night, which is just like a series of like lessons that we're all going to be doing to learn about God, connect with each other. So please be praying for all our teenagers who are doing this, and pray for them for just connecting with God, for learning, and also we are encouraged to bring friends along, so pray for that as well, for bringing new people into the church. That runs for the whole term. Now, we've got Take 5. So we're going to take just 5 minutes to just hear about what you guys have done over the week, what's happening in your lives. Do we have... Yeah. But do we have the chocolates and stuff? Let's leave that. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to ask is if you've had a birthday or a special event or a wedding anniversary or something over the last week, put your hand up and Levi's going to bring you a chocolate. Any birthdays over there? Any wedding anniversaries, anything? Go give those people a chocolate. Keep your hand up. Yep. Keep your hands up. And Take 5 this time is going to be a little bit different to usual. Usually we just ask whatever's happening, but this time this is a community-focused service. So the question for this time is, have you got anything to share about what's been happening in your community or how you've sort of connected to your community over the past week? So if you've got a story about connecting with your community to share, put your hand up.
Every Wednesday, our neighbours bike ride and have dinner together.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's really cool. Anybody else? It doesn't have to be this week. It can be over just a while. I see a hand. Do you want to share some? No? Okay. Nobody? Oh well.
Oh, she's gone shy. Adeline wanted to share about we've got a really big berm out the front of our house, and it's on the corner of an alleyway that lots of the kids use going to and from school. So I can't actually think how long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, we put a swing up in that tree. And now we get heaps of kids stopping and hanging around and swinging on the swing, and there's often this really big gang of kids outside our property after school, and it's really cool to see them all just stopping and chatting and kind of being kids. And it's cool for our kids because it means that they can connect with neighbours kind of near our property and kind of talk to them as they come and go. So it's really cool.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a really cool way of connecting with the community.
We've got a neighbour who is consistently knocking on our door. Currently, she accidentally flooded her house, and currently she's balancing on bits of wood, walking across her living room, trying to wait for her insurance company to come through. And Richard he always has time for her. She's consistently asking him to take photos for the company, send emails, and he just, as much as I inside grumble and go, Richard, Rosemary's here, he never falters. He always goes and helps her. So I really appreciate that.
That's amazing.
Sorry, this isn't really, it's more of a notice. On Tuesday, as some of you know, I am doing a Prayer for Gaza meeting from now 5:30 to 6:30 at church typically. Just if you're interested in that, just come talk to me and they'll be awesome. And today, if anyone wants, which I don't know, there will be a solidarity rally with the people suffering at 2 p.m. at Britomart today for Palestine. If anyone wants to come do that, they can come talk to me.
Yeah, I reckon that counts as community.
I'll just share a quick thing about community. I don't know if you know us, we live a little bit outside of Rewa, and so a relatively new community for us, which we don't really engage with. We don't go to school in that community, so we've had nothing to do with any families generally, which has been a bit weird for us. But we did play pickleball, Nicole and I, and then that was going to stop for a couple of terms. But so Nicole's put her hand up, so she's running the pickleball in Clevedon once a week. And we're just really enjoying how it's so, particularly for me, it's multi-generational. Like we're playing with they got to be pushing 70, which I don't hang out and socialise with 7-year-olds very often that aren't my parents. And then even there's a couple of 20-year-old younger guys. So it's just we've really enjoyed interacting with people we don't know in our community of such a diverse range of interests and ages. And it's actually been really refreshing and is in motivating us to broaden that in our local community.
Thank you. How are we doing for time? One more? Or yeah. Last one.
Hey guys, I just want to share this because it's not even this year. It's not like this is ages ago, but it's a story about connecting with neighbours. And so, and some of you, I've probably told it before because it's one that cracks me up. Anyway, here we go. A few years ago, at our old house, I had to go out and do the washing. Went out to do the washing, and as I was hanging up the washing, the neighbour at the back, this big ass dude, tough looking fella, he comes out on the deck and he's like marching up and down, and he's like, oh, just look really, really stressed. And so here I am doing my washing, and I was like, oh, he's not looking that happy, right? So I was like, oh, hey bro, how you going? And then he came over to the deck and he's like, you effing this, and started yelling at me all these F words. And I was like, whoo, it's not what I was anticipating. And so I just was like, oh, okay, yeah. Just walked around the other side of the house by the lemon tree, cried for about 5 minutes, and then went inside. And then the next day, I had to hang my washing out again. And at the same time as I had to hang my washing, I went outside with the washing basket, and I looked over, and there he was mowing his lawns right at the same time as I had to go hang out the washing. And I was like, maybe I'll do the washing later. Or no, I'll just go and do it now. And then I took the washing down to the washing line, and this guy was mowing his lawns, focused on the lawns, and, yesterday wasn't that great, so I was like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then he looked up from his lawnmower, and he looked straight at me, and I looked straight at him, and in that moment I was like, hi, smiled, waved, hello, and he turned his lawnmower off, and then he walked over to the fence, and he looked all serious. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And he was like, oh yeah. So I went over to the fence, and he's like, oh, just want to say sorry for yesterday. Yeah, nah, it's not every day you get someone who's actually nice, just I'm really sorry about that, We had this great big chat, and I made him a cake, and we became friends. And I just wanted to encourage you that sometimes people on the outside will not look that approachable, or maybe be mean, maybe say F words at us, but we can still love them, and we can keep loving them, and that's my story.
Thank you. Who's next? Okay. I'm not doing that, am I?
Dun, 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 da, da, da. That's the elevator music. Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Go me! You! All right. First of all, big ups to our IT crew at the back today. You might have noticed our screens got a little bit smaller. Yeah. So for those of us who are visually impaired on all, spectrums, this is going to be a bit difficult today, so we just pray that you can listen in. But yeah, they'll be frantically trying to fix that one, which is all good. Hey, look, 2 quick things before you send the kids. Oh, man, I put my things down. Where did I put them? Oh, over there on the chair. Over there. Right, here we go. How many guys? We did the dinner dice last week, which is super cool. Talked about that. And this is just a real cool cue that sits on your dinner table that hopefully reminds us to eat together, and 2 cool opportunities here, a high, a low, and something funny. And it's got a real cool prompt there. So we did that last week. If you missed out, we still have this cool tool. We'll be talking about it all month out in the foyer. And you grab one of these, and there's a cool little dice. And this is the actual dice you do. You need to write the little labels on it, and you can roll that at the dinner table. But how many people had a go this week outside of the ministries that I ran, and I made people do it? Or my own household, Lucy. Kind of doesn't count. Well, yeah. Carters, whoop! Abby, do you want to grab those lolly things? They get a lolly. There you go. Do you want to give it to them, please? That's the Carters. Congratulations for doing something there. Fantastic. Anyone else to have a go? Oh, you! And over there, it's going to deplete the box. Sorry about that, Monique. But well done. You deserve it. All good. And if you haven't got one yet, give it a go. We had so much fun with this week. The hack we found was actually roll the dice, because it has an option of a high, which is called a wow, a low, which is a pow, or a LOL, which is a laugh. And we went around the dinner table and you had to roll it, and whatever it rolled on, that's the one you had to share. Now, there were many funny stories. We won't delve into them too much. From our own dinner table, from Amped, we had some spectacular laugh out louds. Won't go into details, but there was a lot of laughter. And so it's great. Definitely give it a go. Awesome. And the second tool we're introducing for our kids today, who thinks reading the Bible every day is probably a good thing? Oh my gosh. Half the room. Nah. Maybe. I don't know. I'm pretty good. We'll try it again, guys. You know, this is our optimistic self. Who thinks reading the Bible every day is probably a good thing? Yeah, I mean, this is low-hanging fruit here. Thank you. Woo! Made a little bit of work. We need to go there. All right. And so that's that. Put your hand up if you do read your Bible every day. There we go. At least we're honest at this start of the day, which is great. That's right. We know it's good. I mean, but actually getting in the habit of doing it can be really, really difficult. So, introducing the Faith Box. This will solve all your Bible reading problems. Now, but what it will do is for our kids, we're encouraging them to get back into the habit or start the habit of reading the Bible, which is super cool. So each of our kids in Upstreet and in Transit today will be making a Faith Box, which is super cool. And again, this is a cool box. It really serves as a habit prompt. That's why it's big and bulky. Can it sit in the room and it can remind us when we go to bed, hey, that reading the Bible is cool. And in that, it's just a reminder for parents to do a high and low, and we've got a cool 30-day little devotional that we're putting in each of those books, which is super simple to do, just to re-establish that habit, because in Upstreet today, we're just talking about the importance of reading the Bible and how it can really help shape our faith and draw us closer to God, which is super cool. So kids, make sure you're going to get one of these. Parents, that's what it's for. Let's see if we can get that home, and that'll be awesome. Okay, on that note, I think it's time for our kids to head out to their various ministries, so Upstreet and Transit will go, and the creche space is available. Thank you.
Well, good morning. So today we're going to hear from Rewa South and Randwick Park, and we're going to share a little bit about who we are and what we do. And most of you probably know us, and a lot of you have walked alongside us as we have been along this journey. But for those who are not so familiar with us, I thought I'd just very briefly tell you a little bit about who we are, Rewa South, and what do we do. We are three families who teamed up to commit to each other and to our local neighbourhood to hopefully be better servants and witnesses of God. 6 adults with jobs, some part-time and some full-time, a social worker, a graphic designer, a teacher aide / mountain bike instructor, and 3 teachers, and between us, 9 kids. And today we're going to share a little bit about what we do. So in about 2018, a group of us from this church got together to discuss how we could come together to form a community and live together and be in our neighbourhood together. And we were inspired by other Christian communities such as Randwick Park and Rewa South. That's our Southwest Baptist Church down in Christchurch. One family, the Carters, already lived in the neighbourhood of Rewa South, and Marcy also lived in the community of Rewa South, and in a short space of time, God provided opportunities to buy 2 more houses close by, and the Vandenbergs and the Caseys moved in, and with a lot of help and wisdom from some other key people, the Rewa South parish, or Rewa South as we call it for short, was born.
Kia ora whanau. Every Tuesday Tuesday night we get together to do a liturgy together. If you don't know what that is, it's like it's kind of an Anglican style prayer where it's already kind of written for you. And so we do that together, the six of us when we can, or five or four, or whoever is available. So I'm just going to read a little bit of one of those liturgies now. Oh yes, it is up there. And then, so a little bit now and a little bit later. Dear God, we pray for another way of being, another way of knowing. Across the difficult terrain of our existence, we have attempted to build a highway, and in so doing have lost our footpath. God, lead us to our footpath. Lead us there where in simplicity we may move at the speed of natural creatures. Is it the same one? Sorry. And feel the earth's love beneath our feet. Lead us there where step by step we may feel the movement of creation in our hearts. And lead us there where side by side we may feel the embrace of the common soul. Nothing can be loved at speed. God, lead us to the slow path, to the joyous insights of the pilgrim, another way of knowing, another way of being. Amen.
There's usually a song component in the middle of liturgy, so we're going to do that now. And the song that we're going to sing is Spring Up, Oh Well. You can stand, you can sit, it's up to you. Yeah. I've got a river of life. Sing. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. It makes the lame to walk and the blind to see. It opens prison doors, sets the captives free. Well, I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Sing, I've got a river of life. Well, I've got a river of life flowing out of me. It makes the lame to walk and the blind to see. It opens prison doors, sets the captives free. Well, I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Spring up, oh well, within my soul. Spring up, oh well, and make me whole. Spring up, oh well, and give to me that life abundantly. Spring up, oh well. Spring up, oh well, within my soul. Spring up, oh well, and make me whole. Spring up, oh well, and give to me that life abundantly.
That's what happens to me. Well, kia ora e te whānau. Thank you for bearing with us this morning. It's been a little bit human. And we are, aren't we? Which is good. So we're going to come into a little space now where we're just going to give a bit more of an explanation into what it actually looks like the practicalities of what we do. So here at NBC, we've been going through that whole, what's it called? What is it called? The discovery thing? Louder? No. Yes, thank you, Diane. Missio Dei, and we're talking about our values as a church, yeah? Yeah? Cool. And we've done that process as our group with the three whānau, right? So we have 4 values, and my lovely whānau is going to be explaining that in more detail. But top view, like the umbrella, like the top layer, one of our values is place, like the location that we are in. The next value that we have is walking towards, not away, towards people. We have a value of shalom, biblical term meaning a state of wholeness, completeness, all aspects of life. You might be familiar with a Māori term which is hauora, like that total well-being idea. And our 4th value is learning. And now we're going to expand on that a little bit more, each one of those values, starting with Dale. Here he is.
Thank you. Is there a next slide, bro? So this one here, we value, I'll just try to get out of the way. I don't know where to stand where everyone can see it. I could maybe sit, but So we value our place, our parish. We love its streets and its people. And so practically, what this looks like is just kind of, leaving your fence, going for like a walk. Visiting a neighbour to touch base. You kind of, just walk in the streets. So if you can, one of our practices, if you can walk there. And the whole idea is essentially you are able to bump into people. You're present, you're able to sort of connect, you're able to notice things more. You kind of walk maybe the same streets and you just see some things different. It's just, you're able to, connect more if you're walking and you bump into people, and it's a lot easier to build relationships, that way. Our practice is to get out on the streets, walk, buy your milk from the dairy. It's pretty simple stuff, but again, this all creates opportunity to bump into people. This one, a time audit. Book time in your calendar to save space for being present. It's quite that one I feel is quite important for us, because the risk is, or the temptation is to just lead a really busy life and to fill your life with all sorts of things, with all sorts of people, and all sorts of things that could be good, but makes your life very busy. And so doing a time audit where we look at our weeks and look at practically what it is that we're filling our weeks with and how much of that is in our community and when the people in our community, and then sort of taking a stock of what do we need to cut out so that we can be more present, so that we can value our place. And we've got a very geographically defined area that we call our place, which Weymouth Road to Coxhead Road, Mahia, to Christmas, which, like, now that we've been doing this journey for like 5 years, massive. But we've got a geographically defined space that's where we're going to value. That's the people that we're going to give our time and our best to, and then how much other stuff is taken away from that. So that time audit's really important. So that's just practically what that looks like. That's place. Walk towards.
Kia ora e te whānau. So our next value is walk towards. Thanks, Alex.
So in terms of people, they are the ones we walk towards with hearts and hands open, receiving them in love and calling out Christ in them. So again, practically, what does this look like? Knocking on some doors. So when we first moved into our home, we started with our direct neighbours, literally the people beside us and across the street. And it meant, taking over some baking usually is a winner. Learned that one. I think Denise used that a lot. Take that chocolate cake, put it on a plate, and that usually encourages a second interaction because they might bring the plate back, or you might have to go and ask for it. But introducing yourself with something I find always breaks the ice. And one of the lines that I often use is just around that connection. If we know each other, it makes our neighbourhood a better place to be, and we usually feel safer because we're looking out for each other. So simple things like sharing phone numbers. If you notice something about your neighbour's property, or we've got lots of dogs around our neighbourhood that like to walk by themselves. So there's lots of things around dogs that we chat and talk about. Like for our whānau, we've created some rhythms about how we can sort of intentionally continue to connect with even just our direct neighbours, because it can be easy not to see each other, People jump in their car, off they go. Like Emma's story is kind of connected. So when people are out in their garden or washing their car or putting out their bin, instead of just going, oh, cool, there's my neighbour, that's that walk towards. So just saying hi, and maybe it is just a hi, but sometimes that hi turns into a longer conversation where we can kind of just share a bit more about what's been going on in each of our lives. Intentionally looking for reasons to connect, also to borrow things. It's also another handy little way of walking towards, when you don't have those pantry items or that tool, and it's quite frustrating. Knock on a neighbour's door. And then we also find reasons to keep connecting. So we have a rhythm of during Neighbours Month, which is March, Easter, Matariki and Christmas. Together as a whānau, we usually bake something or we have Easter eggs, and we just go and visit those neighbours. And usually that ends up with being invited in and a longer conversation. And I think in those, particularly with those immediate neighbours, like we've had the privilege of journeying through some real highs and some real deep lows in terms of grief and just different complexities that go on in life. And it's been a real privilege. Continues to be. We also have, like Esther shared, we have a weekly meal together on a Wednesday night, and also once a month where our 3 whānau come together. And it's usually at one of our houses, and it's a shared meal. And that's another opportunity to invite and connect and walk towards to see if people want to come along. And that's a real important thing for us doing that together, because it really helps in sharing the connection and sharing that load sometimes with the hosting, and also just sustaining like deeper relationships with neighbours. A mantra that we have, it's not in there, but we say it to each other quite often, is walking towards awkward. Because often it is awkward to knock on a stranger's door or to say hello when somebody is gardening. There are lots of times where it does feel really awkward. But one of our practices is to ask each other too, how have we walked towards awkward? So we've got those levels of accountability. It's one thing to have the practice, but for us, we ask each other about this type of stuff and to see how it's going, and and the stories that we can share together. That often looks like Dale said, walking in our neighbourhood and going a bit slower so we can say hello to people, or walking towards specific neighbours that we're wanting to commit and develop a deeper relationship with, which some of us will touch on a little later. I found having young children in this journey is a challenge, but actually the challenges are minor compared to what they bring to neighbouring, because they often make it way more valuable and meaningful, because they often walk towards others way more naturally than adults. Luke is often the first person to run up to a neighbour as we're walking to say hello. And he often is requesting and setting up play dates with people from kindy in the neighbourhood. And we also currently have a neighbour and friend living in our Sleep Howdy area. And Luke in particular is always coming up with different ways to walk towards him, wanting to give him things and all sorts. So it's really cool how God is at work in our kids in this journey, and our neighbours, and for us as parents. They're always thinking of different ways of walking towards others. I couldn't help just add a little question in there, maybe diverting, but I just wanted to ask, something to think about in terms of where, for each of us, like we all live somewhere. Where has God placed each of you, even if it is for a season? And who might he be calling you to walk towards? And they might just be living right next door. From our experience, walking towards neighbour is transformational. God is always at work in us as we walk towards, and in our neighbours. He's already at work in their lives. And in this process of walking towards, we continue to learn what it looks like to love God, to love neighbour, and to love ourselves. Shalom. Shalom.
Thanks, Naomi. Hello, everybody. I'm Jo. There's maybe a couple of people who don't know me. We bend all we do towards shalom, joining what God is already doing. Little side note to thank Alex for this beautiful artwork that he made for us out of our values, and we each have it on our wall or somewhere in our house, and it's just so cool. So shalom. The translation that we hear of that the most often is probably peace, and it is that, but it is more than that. It is that sense that everything is in its right place, that everything is... We saw a video years ago that has kind of stuck with us and shaped our thinking, that talked about shalom being like a stone wall where all the stones are in place. None of them have fallen down. There's nothing that's wonky or loose. That sense of everything being whole, and that is what our hearts desire for our neighbourhood. And we are very clear that only comes in its fullness in relationship with Jesus. And that that quest for shalom is something that motivates what we do in our neighbourhood, but it is also how we do it, in the sense that we can't give what we don't have. We can't, if we are falling down and broken and all the stones are out of place, then we are less well equipped to walk alongside others. At the same time, this side of meeting Jesus face to face, we're always going to be a bit wonky and stones out of place. So there's a both and there, but some of what this looks like is when we see something that is not, when we see someone who is suffering or for whom things are going badly, refer to value number 2, walking towards, not just automatically going, oh, that looks too messy and difficult, maybe taking the risk of getting involved relationally or at a more advocacy level for just things like when the slide is broken at the playground, when there are roaming dogs and graffiti everywhere, doing something about that. But it also looks like us meeting together once a month to ask the really deep questions, to say, how are you going with this stuff? What's that looking like now? You said last month that you were struggling to get up in the morning to pray. How's that going? You said you wanted us to ask you about what you were doing with your anxious thoughts. How's that going? It looks like deep vulnerability, some loving accountability, and that walking together so that we can be whole, and that is something we can share with others. It also looks like most of us having been to see a counsellor. It looks like us working on self-awareness and understanding who we are and how we relate to each other and to others. So there's a lot in that one. And learn. It ties in quite nicely to learn.
So our fourth value, learn. And together we learn, sharing wisdom, hope, and vulnerability, loved and free. So learning can take many forms. We've read books together. We've done sessions on conflict resolution, domestic violence, te treaty, and the Enneagram. We share our small gleanings from everyday life in the neighbourhood, and we learn from and with our neighbours wherever we can, how to make a curry, how to pop a wheelie, what veggies grow well, the history of the street, or the who's who of the street. One story of this is last Matariki, we wanted to put on a hangi for our neighbourhood to celebrate, and we had no idea what to do. And although we probably could have figured it out ourselves, instead we asked our neighbours to teach us, and we worked alongside them. Our neighbours were also unbelievably generous, donating huge amounts of food. And the hangi still wasn't quite right, but being local, we had several ovens nearby to finish things off. And we learnt, and we shared, and we feasted, and it was truly an event put on by the entire neighbourhood.
Kia ora. So I'm going to share a bit of a story now that, I don't know, maybe you'll see how it ties everything together. Maybe you won't, God willing. And my name is Alex. If you haven't met me, people come up here and say, if you haven't met me, I'm pretty awesome. No, someone else says that about them. Am I pretty awesome? Am I fishing for compliments? This is awkward banter. So here's my story. 2 years ago, I sat down with a stranger. Let's call him Paul. He lives on my street, just a few doors up. I've lived there for like 18 years, 19 years. I didn't know much about him, but I remember his house burning down in 2016. People on my street talked about Paul, not good things. Gossip is not helpful, eh? Anyway, about 2 years ago, Dale knocked on Paul's door and got to know him. Dale's really good at getting to know people. And invited Paul over to play some D&D, which if you don't know what that is, it's Dungeons and Dragons. It's not evil, it's just a game. And I came along to support that kaupapa. Paul was older, hark to Ben Dyack. Don't normally hang out with 62-year-olds myself. He loved D&D, and he drank heaps of tea. He was in his element in these games. I wasn't. And I struggled to come along, not just because I didn't know what I was doing, but Paul, without even trying to, often pushed my buttons. You know what it's like when you don't really gel with someone and the personality thing. And I felt belittled and useless at times. So it was not a fun place for me to be. I often had a lot of anxiety before going. But one of our community values is to walk towards neighbours, to walk towards awkward, to be willing and present. So I started to pray, and I asked God to build a bridge between us, to give me words of life, to protect me, and to help Paul. And slowly, so slowly, it started to happen. So instead of a stranger, I sat down with a neighbour. Time, table, and games, and God had built a bridge. We'd laugh at the table. I still often felt awkward and felt the need to be on high alert. But those buttons were being pushed less and less. Perhaps God was growing me through it. Things really started to change when we weren't at that game. It was when we were walking home afterwards that I'd stop at Paul's driveway and we would talk. We'd talk about his life, depression, betrayal, hopelessness, God, politics. He loves talking about Donald Trump, sci-fi, his dad, religion, regrets, you name it. Paul had been struggling for years, unemployed, and life was weighing him down. We started to meet up in addition to Sunday evenings. Paul would come over and have morning tea or some lunch every couple of weeks. And I worked from home, so that means we could walk to our local bakery, eat and talk. And through this, I gained a really clear picture of the scale of Paul's need and how deeply stuck he was, how not shalom his life was. Paul, he likes to talk a lot, like a lot. And I'm okay with listening, so it worked pretty well. And I do always learn something new from him when we spend time together. So then one day, we were having lunch, and Paul asks me, "Can I ask you a favor?" And to be completely vulnerable with you, my stomach dropped. You know what that feeling's like? You're like, oh, okay. And I went into high alert thinking, oh no, what is this going to cost me? But God calls us to love sacrificially, and promises to be with us and help us. So I took a deep breath and said, okay, well, what do you need? Trepidation. And his request to talk to the bank on his behalf, that's what it was. It seemed simple enough. And saying yes to that opened up a new level of trust, a commitment to help longer term. And I said yes, not quite knowing what it would all mean, but I could trust God would sort the details. Coming alongside Paul meant he'd come over about once a week for morning tea and still have the D&D on Sundays. We talk about life and budgets now, housing, where he's going to live, how he's going to clear his debt. And recently we've started walking together 3 times a week when he's up for it. It's a miraculous change for Paul, who has been mostly inside for several years. So now when we meet, I'm sitting down with a friend. I've stopped coming to D&D, which is freeing. And that's because Paul is no longer a stranger. I don't need that as a space to connect with him anymore. I'm blessed to know him. The journey he is on is also my own, and the work God is doing in him is a gift to me. I believe that any stranger, if they're willing, through time, talk, and shared table, will become more. For me, a stranger became a neighbor who needed a favor, and through that has now become my friend. The steps are slow, but I can see them, and I thank God for them. He is faithful, and he enables his will through us and refines us in that process. I am not who I was 2 years ago, and Paul has been a massive part of that. And I think that's discipleship. I think we are discipled by the people we hang out with, and bringing that to God. And there is the roughness and the rub of people who are really different from you, and God uses that in really amazing ways. There is power in stepping outside of our comfort zones and embracing the call to love sacrificially. There is power in knowing and being known by your neighbors. And what began as a very hesitant encounter with a stranger is now a genuine friendship. Paul still struggles, but he's taking better care of himself, opening up to people again, starting to come to our Wednesday dinners, getting healthy. I can see the evidence of God at work in him and regularly remind him of how much has changed in his life. It's hard to see it when you're still in the depression, So every conversation, every shared meal has been a step closer to God's kingdom coming in both of our lives. May we all embrace the opportunity to walk towards our neighbours, to be able to receive them as they are, and be willing to be transformed in the process. That's my story.
We're just going to finish with the, before Randwick Park come and share, I will finish the liturgy. And this is a read-along one, so can you even see that? I don't know. I'll move over in the hope that you can read that. So I'll read the non-bold bits, and you read the bold bits. What do you mean? Okay, some people can see it. Okay. For the hungry and the overfed, may we have enough. For the mourners and the mockers. For the victims and the oppressors, may we share power wisely. For the peacemakers and the warmongers, may clear truth and stern love lead us to harmony. For the silenced and the propagandists, may we speak our own words in truth. For the unemployed and the overworked, may our impress on the earth be kindly and creative. For the troubled and the sleek, may we live together as wounded healers. For the homeless and the cosseted, may our homes be simple, warm and welcoming. For the vibrant and the dying, may we all die to live. Amen.
And we're Urban Neighbours of Hope. We're a Baptist church order. We're also international. There's places in Australia and in Bangkok. And there's also us here in Randwick Park, but also in Wainuiomata. Our team are these people. Next slide.
They're coming. So, I don't know, can you guys see from that side too? I hope we're not, roughly, righty-ho. I'm going to stand down here then. All right, can you see now? Cool. All right, we've got the Rhodes family. So we've got Michael and Rebecca. Some of you guys know them. Michael is a lecturer at Carey Baptist College and is also an author and has pastored a church before too. And Rebecca has a background in teaching and they have 4 children. And they also have a young woman that lives with them as well. So they're part of our team. Secondly, we have Faye and Steve Molan. They are Salvation Army officers. And Faye is the lead pastor of Manurewa Salvation Army Church in Clendon. So most of her time is actually focused on that, but she manages to find some time to do some work in our neighbourhood as well. But Steve spends most of his time with our neighbourhood work. And then there's us. And most of you know us, so Dave and Denise. We are Dave and Denise Timms, and we've lived in Randwick Park for about 13 to 14 years. We work part-time as well. Dave does 1 day a week for Orbit with the Baptist Union, kind of working with and encouraging people in intentional community life. And I do a day a week at Carey Baptist College just with a Māori leadership program there. The rest of the time we are in our neighbourhood, and I'm also trying to study as well, doing a master's. Okay.
One of the things we quickly worked out when we first moved into the neighbourhood was that God was already there. We had to check the assumptions about us bringing God to the neighbourhood. And during our time in the first year, we discovered incredible stories from incredible neighbours of things that God had been doing in the neighbourhood. And so our role really is to learn to slow down so that we can catch and see God at work. And so the reason why we're part of a church order or part of an intentional community is to create rhythms and ways of living, the way we call it, so that we learn to slow down. Now, slowing down doesn't mean we do nothing, but slowing down means that we become focused on a people and a place. And it's the idea that if we learn and retrain ourselves, we can actually see God already at work. And our role is to join him and to walk alongside him and to partner with what God's already doing. But what we've also discovered, next slide please, is that to slow down and to be able to see God and to catch God is hard work, and we are easily distracted. So we have to learn to realign our values. And the distractions are these. We live in a world now that individualism is such a high value. It's usually unspoken and unknown, but it is incredibly strong. And the outworking of it is consumerism. So I get what I want when I want it. Careerism. I put my career first. So basically these two things are very dominant. These are the ways that we live as Kiwis. These are what I call distractions. They distract us from following Jesus. They're also our cultural idols. These are the things that are most important to most Kiwis. Commuterism. I travel, live, and I can't relate where I want to and when I want. So it's all about me, what I want to do. I travel, I shop, I choose what church I want to be or what community I want to be in. I go on holidays overseas. And then finally, compartmentalism. I live my life in separate pieces to protect myself. So what I do at work is very separate from what I do at home, which is very separate from what I do from entertainment. I mix and play and work with different groups of people. So no one really gets to know who I am, because if people did, I'd be pretty scared about what they would think about me. And so these cultural idols, we've learnt that to slow down to see God, we have got to be able to live intentionally and deliberately so that these idols don't distract us from what we believe Jesus is calling us to do. Next slide, please.
Okay, so we're just going to share 4 values as well that we have. They aren't exactly the opposite of these components of individualism that actually Alan Jamieson has shared with us, which Dave just read out. But one of our values is voluntary simplicity. So we choose to live simply for the sake of others. Michael Rhodes, who is part of our intentional community, wrote a book with Fickett and Holt called Practicing the King's Economy. And in it they use a quote from C.S. Lewis that says, "Our giving ought to affect our lifestyles." So practically for us, this means that we give by choosing to restrict our income. We live on a lower income. We share our time, our money, resources and skills with our neighbours and for the sake of our neighbourhood. We share in hospitality by regularly inviting neighbours over for a cup of tea or to share a meal, and we have others live with us in our homes or on our property. For us, we have a 29-year-old and her 7-year-old son living with us in our home. So we do this because we want to see transformation, just as Manerua South mentioned. Transformation in our neighbours and in our neighbourhood. We want to see our neighbours flourish. How do we keep this value of voluntary simplicity? One radical thing we do regarding money, and that definitely is sometimes a god for some of us, is that we are willing to share our financial records with our group. We share how much money we earn, we share our financial budgets, and each of us has agreed to live within a particular household income. We allow others to ask us questions about our finances and our spending, and we're open to hear about other people's perspectives. So being accountable to us is helps us to keep this value of voluntary simplicity. The distraction, careerism, where I put my career first. So we have a value of kingdom participation, and it's about seeking to participate in the reign of God, sharing Jesus in word, deed, and sign. It's about listening to the Spirit and looking for His fingerprints in the neighbourhood. It's remembering that God was in the neighbourhood before we arrived. I think we would be pretty arrogant to think that we bring God into a neighbourhood. Some of the issues we embrace have to do with social justice, concern for the environment, evangelism, community-led development, and compassion for the marginalised. We have 2 businesses that we started in response to our neighbours wanting to find work. One is a social enterprise called Bounce for a Cause, and this is a bouncy castle business. The other is a lawn mowing business called Stepping Stones Lawns, where we are subcontracted by City Care to mow our parks, pick up rubbish and clean the public toilets. We also mow a local school and some residential properties. So we employ 12 local people, and some of these people have struggled to find other forms of employment. Last year, we did something new with our neighbours. We focused on planting trees in our neighbourhood. In 2022, the news media website called Stuff published an article by Kate Newton called The Green Divide. It focused on tree coverage in our cities. Newton found that there was a relationship between shade and socioeconomics. If you lived in a wealthy neighbourhood, it was highly likely that you had many trees on your street berms and in your parks. Shade and prosperity were linked together, and these suburbs were called the leafy suburbs. Auckland Council's Ngāhere report illuminated this harsh reality, revealing that the budget for trees in state housing communities had deliberately been given a lower budget, and this had been given about 20 to 30 years ago. Tree cover in Auckland suburbs ranges from 2% to 82%. This highlights an area of social injustice. So last year we secured some funding to buy about 57 trees, and we planted them on our street berms with our neighbours and with the council permission. Next one. Next slide, thanks. Commutism. So we have a value of incarnational presence. It's about following God's presence and an invitation to neighbourhoods facing urban poverty, living, working and making a home there. The incarnation reminds us of Jesus, who was fully God and fully human. Luke 1 tells us of this story. Incarnation derives from the Latin word incarno, meaning to make into flesh and to be made flesh. And this value reminds us of the importance of embodying the gospel and living among the people. We choose to spend less time commuting and travelling out of our neighbourhood. We get to hear and see our neighbours by restricting our lifestyle. This means we are available and present in our neighbourhood. So, one really simple example is sharing a cuppa. The value of incarnational presence can be lived out simply by sharing a cup of tea. And Alex Stewart shared a little bit about his story in the same sort of way. So we're sharing a cup of tea with a neighbour. Last week I had a cup of tea with a neighbour down our street. And being present meant I had the time to chat and to listen. It was amazing what conversations we had. She said she shared some of her personal life stories. Another time being present meant that we were able to respond to someone who came to our door. She was facing domestic violence, and so we helped hide her and found a place for her where she could be safe. Okay, can we change to the next one? Finally, I think it is. Covenanted community. We make a covenant together. We embrace and serve one another in community, loving the Lord together, knowing, challenging and tenderly caring for the local and wider team, and sharing a common rhythm of life. So we share a commitment to life together by covenanting to each other for a particular period of time and to a particular place. For us, it's Randwick Park. We share a commitment to family or to whānau, and we recognise that there are different stages of life and also that we have various income sources. So we navigate those differences together. We choose to live out love God, love self, love neighbour, which is found in Mark 12. So we have an inward focus and an outward focus. Inwardly as a team, we commit to rhythms such as common prayer and devotions. We meet together twice each week in the morning. We have a weekly team meeting. We have a weekly break, a day of Sabbath. Fortnightly we have a dinner together, and each year we do a retreat. There are lots of other things that happen, but these are just some of the cool stuff. Outwardly, we focus on our neighbourhood of Randwick Park, and we've found that transformation actually takes many years. It doesn't happen quickly. We believe the neighbourhood needs to be included in community decision making, and we believe that building relationships with our neighbours is the highest priority. We encourage each other to visit our neighbours and to invite them to our homes. We also have some projects that we run or that we're involved in. So we have created work in response to our neighbours asking for it through creating the Bouncy Castle business called Bounce for a Cause and Stepping Stones Lawns. We run a kids club called South Pack for children aged 7 to 12 years, and we run that at our community centre. We have a weekly food co-op with the Salvation Army that offers cheaper price food from the community that you can get from the community centre. 2 of our team are helping to restart the local residents association by being on the committee, and 1 of our team members volunteers 2 days in a local primary school. So that's just very briefly a little bit about us.
So it's an idea of trying to do an urban papakainga. It takes a village to raise a child, and how do we become that village in our neighbourhood? But if we're kind of to summarise it simply, because that sounds really complicated, kind of what we do, simply the next slide kind of explains what we do. We eat together. We pray together. We work together. We love playing together. And we care together. We are open to other people joining us, and we've got a couple of people looking at next year joining us, and Steve and Faye are looking to leave sometime in the next 18 months to start an intentional community somewhere else. And so if there's anyone that's interested in this kind of idea, please come and see us afterwards. But we'll just finish our little chat with a video that Auckland Prayer Group made of us. So we'll leave that with you. A lot of the work that we do around here is walking alongside people, helping them to think and to start to dream about what's possible for them and for their family and for the street. What would heaven in Randwick Park, what would heaven on Secretariat Street look like? We've had a dream for a long time to hear the song of the tui. In our neighbourhood there's very few trees, and so there's very few reasons for the tui to come back. Where originally there was a lot of bush and stuff around here, but that's all been stripped. We thought, why don't we be more proactive as a neighbourhood? And so we found some funding, and we have recently purchased 58 trees and planted 54 of them. Every neighbour came out from their house and they helped plant this tree. And then at the end, we prayed for the tree. And so some come from church backgrounds, but a lot of them don't. And we had these beautiful prayers done in Niuean, done in Māori, done in English, done in Samoan. And it was just this acknowledgement that our Creator has produced these beautiful plants for our benefit. And we need to be partners with our Creator and being proactive. What we've seen, and just in this last week, 3 really good neighbours of ours have just come to me, said that, do I know of any places that are up for rent because their landlord has sold their home. And it destroys the social connections that people have. So they're doing well at school, they've got friends here, they've got work here, they've got people that they can go and see and talk to when needed. but all that gets uplifted just because a house gets sold. So what we need to pray for is Christians who are willing to invest into long-term housing, places where people can rent in a private thing but know that they can stay long-term, because there's this commitment to a person as a person rather than profit. There's a few Christian trusts around the country that are doing this, and business people have taken a risk and put their own money into it. But the stories I'm hearing back from them and what they're seeing that's happening from it is just so worth the risk and so worth the investment. Everyone needs to have a home, and it needs to be stable, and it needs to be a place that you feel safe and secure in.
We are going to close as we always close our Monday morning prayer meetings with our parish prayer, which is based on those 4 values that we talked about. Emmanuel, God with us, make us conduits of your love. Open our eyes to your kingdom that is here in this place. Speak to our hearts about our time and help us to truly be here.
Prince of Peace, may we experience more shalom in our lives, your wholeness that helps bring wholeness to the people and places around us.
God of wisdom, help us to learn your ways that are perfectly designed for our parish. Open our minds to the truth that sets free. Humble us to be able to receive the wisdom you have poured into our neighbours.
God of love, enable us to respond to your call to love those on the margins, those people living hand to mouth. Teach us to say no to the many, so that we may go deep with the few.
Now we will close with this benediction and join in if you know it or can read. Kia tau kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki a ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu. Ake, ake, ake. Amene. Don't forget the sausage sizzle. Go and eat sausages.